on a day-to-day basis, is the kind of language that the writers that we are reading also use, and it's towards making a kind of an impact in the world. So as we said, if you remember from last week's session, you know, the way Austen kind of preambles the entire story. It's a very thick book too. The entire story, the way she preambles it is by beginning with the word truth and universal, right? So it is a truth universally acknowledged. So, you know, it's a hyperbole. It's like, universe, really? Universe, not the planet, not the world, but universe. So it's a very it's a hyperbole. It's a statement that kind of declares in a large scale. But then, what is this truth? Not truth that we all want harmony, we want peace in the world, we want safety for all our children and our family members, but the universal truth is that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife. That's the universal truth. So, you know, so we established last week there is a kind of a irony, humor, tongue-in-cheek, you know, she's being a little bit cheeky with this statement. So that also sets the kind of genre that this narrative is. It's maybe comedy, maybe a little bit romantic comedy, right? So it's not tragedy, that's for sure. Yes. Right? And last week, we also looked at Mrs. Bennet's character by identifying the circles of issues. You know, if you position Mrs. Bennet in the middle circle or the inner circle, okay, let me see if I can do it this way. No. Okay, just a second. Okay. Can you see the whiteboard that I am uploading right now? Hello? Can you see?
Yes.
Can?
It's loading.
No. It's still loading though.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. So
Yeah,
I'm the way I visualize when I'm reading a text, the way I visualize things is by drawing things out. I'm very visual in that way. So when I'm reading something, I like to kind of visualize it. So if I drew the inner circle, and I chose a character, whatever your character is, Lizzie, Mr. Bennet, Mrs. Bennet, Bingley, Darcy, whoever you want. Okay, so you've got the inner circle. This is the micro level. Okay, so this is the micro level of reading a particular character. Then as you proceed further, you go further out, away from the character, right? And you kind of take the reading of the character away from the micro level to a more macro level. What that means is you begin to start to make connections between the character and maybe society, right? Maybe the family life, maybe a particular theme that you're looking at, maybe a particular issue. Okay, so this is what I published this in 2012, a journal paper based on a research that I worked on. So this is what I call circles of issues. So you can draw more and more and more and more circles around the micro level of reading. The micro level would be close textual reading. So when I read you the line last week, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. And we unpack that. You know, the video is already up on YouTube as well as on Facebook, and I shared the link with you. So if you go into that, we did a very micro level reading, based on that line, based on chapter 1, based on the couple of characters that's in there. So for today's session, we're going to broaden that micro level reading. Okay, we're going to broaden it slightly bigger by looking into the kind of issues and characters that you found interesting in this novel. Okay, so like I said, we're not thinking about comparative literature. We're not thinking about crossing borders and across time and space and all the rest of it. So this is very much practical criticism, PC. You know, you're looking at the text, you're kind of asking yourself some of the things that draws your attention to the reading of this text. And we're also using reader response, which means every one of you will have your own unique take into how this book affects you. You might be troubled. Maybe Ali is reading this first line and he might think, you know, I'm a single. Are you a single man, Ali?
Yeah.
Okay, Mohammed, are you a single man? You're not, right? You're not. So yeah, you got a family. So Ali might read this and say, I'm offended. I'm a single man and I have good fortune. Who says I want a wife? Right? You might be offended by that, right? So that first opening line might already put you off. It's like, who is this woman telling me that I'm supposed to want a wife? She's almost prescribing. But as you read that, you feel that she's not being serious altogether, right? So there is that element there. So however you respond to the text, we can take the discussion to that level. Okay? So who wants to go first? Huda says she will like to set the tone of discussion through her presentation. So Huda?
Yes. Doctor, I understand from my reading that chapters 34, 35, 36 is the climax of the plot. Because there was, misunderstanding between Lizzie and Darcy. And by these three chapters, as if Jane Austen is removing the leaves layer by layer from a fruit to get to the pulp.
Huda, again, chapter 34 until?
34, 35, 36.
Go ahead, proceed.
As if Jane Austen, this is I think this is the climax of the plot. Jane Austen, as if she is strips the layer that are accumulated, on the truth, and hide it. So she is removing these leaves or this layer as if it is a piece of fruit to get to the pulp, which is the truth. Okay, so the main characters, Darcy and Lizzie, they have this tidal relationship between them because of this constant misunderstanding. This is first, and I make something like similarities and differences between these two characters because they are the main characters of the novel. So is it okay, Doctor, if I continue?
Yeah, proceed. This is good. Yeah.
Thank you. So both of them, they have this pride. As for Lizzie, a pride of self-respect. As for Mr. Darcy, his rank, he's wealthy, he's from very famous family. And there is she prejudiced against Darcy's snobbery, while he prejudiced her the inferiority of her family and the embarrassing behavior of her family. When on chapter 34, he tried to propose for her. So he keeps talking about his affection to her, while he is describing his love to her. He said something about her inferior family and so and so. Right. So I think he is while she was listening to him and examining before she was examining the letter of her sister Jen, as if she is digging and examining the letter for hidden meaning. So when he proposed for her, as if she's revenging from her, by her decision that she let him down and she refuses his offer. I think his prejudice was just words. Otherwise, he will not propose for her. While she, no, it was action. She let him down, and she was very toughly worded for him. There is something between them. There is something that they share, both of them. He likes writing, and he is very, organized. Has this organized mind. And she also the same. She used to read. She used to write. She used to examine everything. Her character as observer for people and judge them. While Darcy, he doesn't like to communicate with others. He is, especially those who he is not familiar with them or acquainted to them. So as we see, they share this love of writing. That's why the end of the of this, tridal relation. Sorry, tidal relationship. It was solved by his writings. By writing these two letters, he explained everything to her. And since she is examiner, a good examiner and observer, she could sense what kind of man he is. We have in his writing, he was more persuasive to her than talking to her.
Do you want to pick up on any key excerpts from pages from chapters 34 to 36? Is there any particular line or statements that he makes that you want to examine a little bit more?
All right. If I may say about, when he was talking about his love and his affection, he said, "In vain I have struggled."
Huda,
It is
chapter?
It is 34, Doctor.
34. So we can all refer to our own text, So page 34, chapter 34, is it towards the end?
It is 236.
Yeah, everyone's got different versions, but
okay.
Maybe you could just count us the number of paragraphs, either from the opening of the chapter or the end of the chapter.
Okay, the first one is very long. 1, 2. The fourth.
The fourth paragraph?
Yes. And thus begun.
The paragraph begins with?
In vain I have struggled.
In vain. Okay. All right. Cool. Does everyone have the same page? Hello?
Yes.
So it's literally the second page of chapter 34.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's a dialogue. So it says, "In vain have I struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed." That bit. Do you all have it?
Yes.
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 All right. Go ahead.
And as we see, Doctor, in this, he has this. He is struggling. There is a conflict between the inner feeling, his own feeling, and the family, his family. And she also struggling because she was flattered when he proposed for her, because it was a very very good chance that she could lost it because of her love to her family, because he disrespected.
Where do you get the impression that she was flattered?
Just a minute.
Which particular description indicates that she was flattered?
The end of the chapter 34. Before she begins to cry. I don't know where to find it. He said she was flattered, but her dislike for him because of her sister Jane. Just a minute.
No, where specifically? I want you to kind of like pick on the actual statements that she makes to indicate that she was flattered at this point in chapter 34.
After don't know where can I get it.
The reason I'm being specific like this is because, you know, when you come to do your analysis, for all your assignments, for your thesis, for publication, for whatever, sometimes we have an impression when we're reading a text. We have an impression, especially a character like Lizzie, and you feel like you know her. You feel like it's, you know, she's a little bit of me, you know, maybe, you know. But until you can find the actual evidence to support whatever thesis that you are making about the issue at hand, until you can find the actual evidence from the source, you cannot make that statement. You cannot make that declaration. That's our discipline, the discipline of literature. Your statements that you make, your hypothesis, whatever it is that you're trying to say, it has to be backed up by evidence. If you cannot find the evidence in the book that you are reading, then you cannot make that statement. Even if your gut tells you, you know what, this is what I think Lizzie really feels, because if it was me, this is how I might feel, you cannot make that kind of a statement. Okay? So,
but you know, doctor, I know it is here, but sorry, I couldn't because of Okay.
Because what I'm trying to say is, in this chapter, she is still uncertain. She's not completely 100% swayed by him. There is something that is creating a conflict in her. There is an internal conflict in her between liking him, and something else. What is that something else?
It's what he did to her sister Jane. That he is the cause of the separation between Jane and Bingley, and what happened to Peckingham, that he didn't give him his inheritance. That's all.
Where is Lizzie's loyalty currently?
Her family.
Yeah.
Her family, Jane.
And you, at the beginning of chapter 1, where was Mrs. Bennet's loyalty? I know we don't like Mrs. Bennet very much, do we? Where can anyone else? Are you all online with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You all can pitch in. This is not a session with Huda and me alone. I want you all to kind of like step in. But where is Mrs. Bennet's loyalty? What did we establish the last discussion?
Family.
Her family, specifically?
The daughters.
Daughters. Specifically to do what?
Marry them
To get them married.
Jennifer, not marry them off and send them packing, not marry them off, but
happiness, I guess. Yeah, the daughter's happiness.
Right.
Yeah,
secure
future.
secure some kind of security, and maybe not happiness necessarily, but some form of security. What's the indication that security is paramount for her? What's the indication from chapter 1?
The annual money they could earn it. Those
Kind of guy
speakers.
that she wants for her daughters
Yes.
must be someone who is wealthy, someone who
Wealthy.
can take care of her daughter, right? So
Yes.
it's not just about marry them off, I've got 5 daughters, God, just marry them off and I'd be done with them, not like that. But she was so excited because this fellow just came into town, and he must want to meet our girls because he's single and he's wealthy and our girls are available, and do you know what I mean? So loyalty is an important theme here, the issue of loyalty. All right. So here in this chapter that Huda picked up, chapter 34, this is a question I want everyone to kind of pitch in and think about. Where is Darcy's loyalty currently?
Darcy?
Everybody, Ranjini, Jennifer, Shahira, Muhammad, Ali, where is Darcy's loyalty at this point in chapter 34?
To his friend, Mr. Bingley
friend.
first, and then only to himself, and then to Miss Elizabeth.
Okay, so Jennifer to his friend, all right, and then maybe to
family.
his
Family, his daughter, his sister.
That line that Huda read just now, in vain have I struggled.
Yes.
It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. So he has been repressing his feelings thus far, largely because of his loyalty, or the issue of where he places his sense of priorities. All right. At the beginning, in chapter 1 with Mrs. Bennet, her priority was not to herself. Her priority was to her girls, seeing that the girls are married off. Where is Darcy's priority at this point in the chapter? Not as the story unfolds. I know, maybe you finish the story, so you kind of like fell in love with him and you think the world of him and all the rest of it. But at this juncture of the story, of the narrative, where is his loyalty? What is his priority at this point? Is his priority, as Jane Austen said at the beginning of the story, is his priority in search of a wife?
Yes. No.
No.
But his affection to Lizzie.
Right.
This is the
But
first.
I want you to get to the core of it first. Where is his loyalty? When you say family, okay, fine. Think of the circle here, the issues that I've kind of identified. I want you to look at it. Hello? So go beyond what he is saying, the micro, go towards the macro. Where is his loyalty?
I think he's just loyal to himself alone.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I will ask for evidence. Whatever you say, all of you, I will ask you for an evidence. So when you say he is loyal to himself alone, if that was your thesis, you will find evidence from the text to support that kind of a thesis. I have an impression, I have an opinion, and I will have to support that opinion with the text. So whatever opinion you make, I want a kind of a support. Anyone else?
I think specifically,
Ranjini, yeah?
it's just that there's like no specific text that I can remember now, but it's just that throughout the novel, I realized that the only person that he's loyal to is himself, and then his thoughts, the things that he believes in. So that's why I kind of have a feeling that he's just loyal to himself. Yeah.
Anyone else?
To his love, Lizzie.
Yeah,
At
I
this
was
point,
thinking
because
like Huda as well. I think he's actually loyal to Elizabeth, and his actions actually show that.
Okay.
He
But
will
he is
always
not
be there
able
for
to
her.
pursue this relationship in the way he wants to because
Of his family status and Lizzie's family status.
what does family status represent?
Their
Sorry,
social
Doctor.
class.
The structure.
Sorry? Somebody said something just now.
Yes,
It's difficult
Doctor.
that I can't see your faces, so I don't know who's talking. So,
Me,
who's me?
Ali.
Ali. Hi, Ali. So, what does family status represent?
I think the state of his family that was live in, the situation that they was live in as a family.
Okay. So doesn't his family status also indicate a kind of class and social hierarchy that he wants to retain? You know, if you
Right.
come from the upper class, do you want to befriend and even marry somebody from the middle class or even lower than you?
This is what I want to talk about, Doctor.
Okay,
When someone coming from upper class, he cannot deal the others as the class that he used to live with. He just like the ones who are just like him. So he cannot talk with others, cannot make a relation with others. So
Can we do Ali's session as well now? Can we, Ali, which chapter did you pick up on? Did you have specific chapters or
just 1 minute.
No worries. Hello?
I missed the chapter.
Okay, no worries. But tell us, as you're looking for it, tell us something about your reading of Pride and Prejudice, specifically, you know, the issue that you have identified.
Me, Doctor?
Yes, Ali. Yeah, sorry, I'm pointing at the screen. Obviously, you all can't see who I'm pointing to, but yeah, I'm pointing at Ali now.
So I start with talking about. Today I'm interested actually to talking about Darcy and Bingley exactly.
Okay. Obviously.
And the effect of Mr. Bennet towards Bingley. Okay. At the first chapter, I see that Mr. Bennet was so odd a mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humor, reserve, and caprice, that the experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. This is from chapter 1. You can see it with me when he began with, I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a bit better than the others, and I am sure she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half so good humored as Lydia, but you are always giving her the preference. So I see that this attitude from Mr. Bennet towards Bingley will be changeable from Mr. Bennet towards Bingley then at another chapters.
So, wait a minute. Now you're confusing me. So the quote that you read us from chapter 1,
yeah,
Mrs. Bennet said about
chapter 1. You can see with me now.
Yeah.
I desire you will do no such thing. You can see it at the middle of chapter 1.
Yes. Who is she talking about at that point?
Mr. Bennett was Mr. Bingley because
No.
sorry, Mrs. Bennett. Yeah, towards Bingley because she wants him to marry Lizzie, and
Yes.
and she says, "I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a better than the others, and I
Right.
am sure she is not half a handsome and Jane nor a half so good."
Right.
Humored as Lydia, but you are always giving her the preference.
Right. So
Yeah.
Mrs. Bennet is telling Mr. Bennet off for putting Lizzie as
Yeah.
his priority, his number one priority. So Mrs.
Yeah.
Bennet doesn't approve of that. But you wanted to say something about Mr. Bennet in this section?
No, I just to indicate for that because at later chapters I will also indicate for another thing that change his attitude toward Bingley.
Change whose attitude?
Toward Bingley as to marry Lizzie, because at last he will not marry her and change his attitude or her attitude. Yeah, and then we see at chapter 2 that Mr. Bennet was among the earliest of those who waited Mr. Bingley also. While Mr. Bingley was observing his second daughter employed in trimming a hat, he suddenly addressed her with the statement, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie." This is also another indication for Mr. Bingley for Lizzie to marry her.
Which line specifically?
At chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Yeah.
At the beginning, at the end.
Yeah. At the beginning of chapter 2, I hope Mr. Bingley will take it, Lizzie. Or will like it, sorry, will like it, Lizzie. Yeah, when while Mr. Bingley actually was observing his second daughter, she was employed in trimming a hat. Then he suddenly addressed her with this statement, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it." Okay.
But Mr. Bingley is not in this section yet. He's not in chapter 2. He's not there yet, correct?
Yeah.
So the family is in their home. They're talking about the very wealthy young man who has just come to town, right?
Yeah.
So why did the father say, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it"? And first of all, what's it? What is it? Anybody else can pitch in. What is it in this line? "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it," Lizzie. What's it? The hat.
The hat, yeah.
So he's trying on his hat, employing it in his possession. He's trying it on, and it's like, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it."
Yeah.
Why do you think he said that? See what the wife responds, the very next line.
This is the mother. Just she want to be acceptable and in good looking, so to give him a good impression of the family.
No. Who says, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it," Lizzie?
Mr. Bennet, I think.
So the father says that.
The father to his wife. Yes.
Yeah.
The father says that to his daughter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Daughter.
And his wife responds, "We're not in a way to know what Mr. Bingley likes, since we are not to visit."
Yeah.
So why did Mr. Bennet say that? "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie."
You wish that Lizzie will be the.
Oh, no. Read the line carefully, guys.
I hope Mr. Bingley will like Lizzie.
I don't have it.
Sorry. At the beginning of chapter 2, Huda. At the beginning of chapter 2.
I don't have even a laptop. Just hearing from you. Sorry.
Maybe Mr. Bennet is trying to hint them that he actually has introduced to Mr. Bingley, and he has I don't know what's that word called again.
Suspicion?
No, it's like because when they want to meet guys during that time, the father has to be the one to go and introduce himself to the guy first. So actually, by stating this, I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie. He is indirectly telling the mom and the girls that he had actually met Mr. Bingley already, and
What happened in chapter 1 when she said to him, there's this, Netherfield Park has been rented, and
yes,
what
and
happened
then
then?
he kind of like not say tease her, saying that, oh, who is it? What his name? Is he single or not? So actually, Mr. Bennet does consider and does care for Mrs. Bennet's welfare and the family's and the daughter's welfare. So
Mhm.
he, as how Jane Austen wrote about Mrs. Bennet character throughout the whole series, he is just a very cheeky dad trying to tease everyone. So he didn't tell them that he already did that, but he told them after the whole conversation, like technically until the next page, that I say impossible, Mr. Bennet, impossible. When am I not acquainted with him myself? How can you be so teasing? So actually, that means that he already met Mr. Bingley.
Right. So the point I'm making is, number one, don't read it literally, because there's wit and humor and kind of a comedy of errors here. Mr. Bennet has been married to this woman for so long that he's developed a kind of a way he deals with her. So when she comes in chapter 1 and says, Netherfield Park has been rented, it's been let at last, he could easily have said, yeah, I've gone to meet them, and they're very nice gentlemen, and hopefully our girls will get to know him one of these days. Instead of being normal,
Direct.
nice, direct, what does he do? Say, oh, maybe you should go and see them. Oh, but then you are more handsome than the rest of them, so he might like you the most, and he's just teasing her, right? So the point of this chapter is still exposition. We are still in the exposition state of the storytelling. We don't know what the issue is just yet, right? We haven't come to like what Huda was doing earlier, chapter 34, the issue, the conflicts and the issue of loyalty and all the rest of that. So in this chapter 1 to the early chapters, we are still being exposed to the characters. So I want you to read it, and keeping in mind the kind of genre that this is, I need you to kind of look at it, not take it literally. Are you all following me so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the point is, he knows he's from chapter 1, from the earlier conversation, he knows his wife gets annoyed when he gives preference to Lizzie. He knows that. So what does he do? Does he stop doing that? No.
No.
He teases her even more.
Yes.
Anything to ruffle her feathers, anything to get her kind of like riled up and wound up and all the rest of it. Do you understand? So that's the kind of a gentleman that he is. He's very cheeky. He likes to tease. He likes to kind of like create ruffles in their relationship, but only for good. Just nothing bad from that. Okay, so Ali, what else do you want to say about either Darcy or Bingley or Mr. Bennet?
I see, Miss Victor, the relationship between, or the friendship between Bingley and Darcy. And Bingley and Darcy's friendship is explained as a meeting of opposites. Bingley's easy manner and Darcy's more stringent personality. Bingley deeply respects Darcy's judgment, but their demeanors are different. Anywhere they go, Bingley is sociable and well liked. And then we see the opposite of that from Darcy, because Darcy is always so aloof that he offends people. Both Mr. Darcy and Bingley are close to each other, even though they see the world from different views. as they both, Darcy and Bingley, fall for the Bennet sisters, Elizabeth and Jane. Bingley had never met with a more pleasant people or prettier girls in his life.
Where did you get that from?
From chapter 4.
Can you identify the actual phrase or quote?
At the last of chapter 4, between him and Darcy, there was a very steady friendship in spite of busting of character. Yeah.
Okay, I have a quick question for everyone right now.
Yeah.
Who is the narrator of this story? Who's telling the story?
It's third-person point of view, right?
Okay. Shahira, do you want to expand on that?
It's an outsider looking in. It's not Lizzie's voice, or it's not Mr. Darcy's voice, but it's an outsider looking in. So third-person point of view.
Okay. Anybody else? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I agree that it's a third-person narrator.
Okay. What gives you the indication it's a third person? It's someone from the outside looking in. It's basically like one of us looking through the window of their household and seeing what's happening there. What gives you that indication?
The way the story has been written throughout the whole novel.
Just give me certain excerpts, like pick up certain excerpts and kind of like show me an indication that this is a third person point of view. This is not a first person point of view. This is not, like Shahira says, this is not from Lizzie's perspective or from, if this was a movie, if it was a first person point of view, the camera will be from the perspective of the central character. You see what the central character sees. That's a first person point of view, right? So if this was a third person point of view, it's almost like the camera is like hovering over everyone else, and the camera gets to see everything that we want to see. Okay. If this, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe chapter 4, the first line, when Jane and Elizabeth were alone, the former, who had been cautious in her praise of Mr. Bingley before, expressed to her sister how very much she admired him. So it's like third person, like we can imagine and view that, Jane and Elizabeth are standing alone. And Jane is telling her sister how much she admired him and the expression she's doing. So from this 3 sentences alone, we can see that, we are not Jane, we are not Elizabeth, we are standing in the same room as them, looking at them having a conversation.
Good. Is there one particular character that the narrator seems to be to know more of?
Easy.
Do we have an example here from chapter 4?
Okay, I have to look.
Just read through it, glance through it very quickly, and see wherever it's the narrator speaking, whose perspective is the narrator taking?
Lizzie, I would like to add, it's like she is in this same chapter 4, same page, is Lizzie talking about Jane. You are a great deal to like people in general. You never see a fault in anybody. All the world are good and agreeable in your eyes. I never heard you speak ill of a human being in my life. So from
that's a dialogue. That's dialogue. So the narrator is just capturing whatever dialogue that he or she is hearing, is privy to. But is there a narrative piece when the narrator is kind of like capturing things that no one is saying anything, there's no dialogue, there's no conversation, but the narrator is able to make certain observations, maybe even go into the monologue or the running thoughts of a particular character or characters. Is there an indication?
I think there is. It's also in chapter 4.
Mm.
Wait, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10. Okay, paragraph 11. Elizabeth listened in silence but was not convinced. Their behavior at the assembly had not been calculated to please in general, and with more quickness of observation and less pliancy of temper than his sister, and with the judgment too unassailed by any attention to herself, she was very little disposed to approve them.
Right. Did she say something?
No, it's listen in silence. So Elizabeth was listening to her sister's conversation, but the narrator knew what she was feeling.
Right. So the narrator is in fact closer in perspective to Elizabeth, albeit not from a first person point of view. The narrator is more inclined towards representing whatever Lizzie sees and feels and thinks about. All right. So do we get an indication that the narrator is also doing the same for other characters? Do we, for instance, get what Darcy is feeling or thinking or expressing in his mind? Do we get that?
Not
No.
really.
Can you imagine if
Yeah,
this?
only Elizabeth.
Yeah. Can you imagine if this was a story and all of us here, we are the characters of this story, and the narrator is seeing things from Shahira's perspective only, right? What Shahira expresses in her mind and feels in her heart, the narrator captures it. But what all of us are experiencing in our mind and feeling in our heart, the narrator doesn't capture that. What can you say about the narrator there?
Omniscient narrator.
No. Who said that?
Me, Muhammad.
Muhammad. Not omniscient. If it was omniscient, the narrator will capture every one of our feelings and thoughts, which means then you get to know what Darcy is feeling, maybe his conflict, his loyalty. Should I be loyal to my family, my aunt? But I love this woman and I want to be with her. Should I let go of my class and my loyalty to my family and my status? I love her, but at the same time, her family is so low. Do we hear all those thoughts from Darcy?
No.
That
No.
tells you it is not an omniscient narrator. Do you understand? If it was omniscient, you will hear more from the other characters. For instance, do you hear more from Jane? Do you understand what are some of the things that Jane is going through? Besides what she says, overtly what she says, do you hear what she is thinking?
No.
No.
That also tells
But
you something.
Lizzie embodied Jane Austen.
Again, Huda?
Lizzie embodied Jane Austen herself. She reflects her character of Jane Austen.
Okay, so this is another issue. Huda, you're introducing us another issue. This is even a bigger circle. Okay, it's a no, I'm not drawing the circle very well. Oh well. So this is even a bigger circle. At the macro level, you're talking about the author.
Yes.
You're talking about the author. What is the author trying to do and which character best represents the author?
Yes.
Right? I have an
Yes.
opinion as well. I'll share with you all the opinion at another session, but that's a good point. So which character represents the author? That's something else that you all can explore. So issues. It could be character, it could be characters that kind of represents the author's voice?
We have Lizzie, number one, and Charlotte in specific sentences, as if she's expressing, you know, the social customs and something like that, and beliefs. When she said something about Mr. Darcy.
So,
Uh,
so the running commentary, right? The running commentary of societal issues, right? The
Yes.
running commentary about social, economic, maybe even political issues, or even cultural issues. Okay,
Yes.
kind of tells you this is coming from the authorial voice, the voice of the author, perhaps.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That we can unpack that separately. We can unpack that separately. Okay. Ali, is there anything else you want to add about the friendship between Darcy and Bingley? Besides the personality is different, they are very close. One seems to be more people-friendly, Bingley. The other one seems more of an introvert, Darcy. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I see that when Bingley and Jane finally marry, Mr. Bennet say it, you are each of you so complying that nothing will ever be resolved on. So easy that every servant will cheat you, and so generous that you will always exceed your income. That is referred to the way that Lydia was in. Like Lydia's will have a solid foundation of respect and mutual admiration.
Lydia.
Yeah, Lydia.
Lydia? How come?
Really?
Yeah, Lydia.
They have a mutual affection?
The way that she was in her marriage, when he told her that like Lydia's will have a solid foundation,
Can you
just
find
like
me
of respect and mutual admiration.
Lydia? Can you
Yeah.
find me the actual excerpt?
It's either be 55 or 56. I think 55 at most.
Page or chapter?
Chapter 55. Either 55 or 56. At most 55.
55.
Cannot be 55 because by then the line says Wickham and Lydia were all forgotten.
You are each of you so complying that nothing will ever be resolved on. So easy that every servant will cheat you, and so generous.
Where? Can you tell us which chapter that one is?
I think 55 or 56. At most 55.
Can anyone else find that?
Not yet.
Sorry, Ali, which chapter is it?
55, I think, or 56.
I think this is at the end of the story.
Yeah. At the end of the story,
Yes, so it will be
chapter
61
55.
maybe.
Because I said when Bingley and Jane finally marry, Mr. Bennett say it. This is the say by Mr. Bennett.
Because they are both of them good-hearted, so servant will exploit their innocence, their I don't know, this character, but I can't find it.
No, but I'm intrigued by what Ali says about Lydia and Wickham. So I want to find that. I really want to see where exactly he got the idea. Found it.
Found.
Chapter 61. 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's the
Sixth paragraph.
Sorry, doctor, can I have the page number, please?
61.
It's chapter 61. You all have the same number of chapters, right?
No, because my book is followed by volume, so it's like volume 1, volume 2, volume 3.
Literally is the last volume.
Okay, all right.
Seriously, it's the last chapter.
61, doctor.
Yes.
61, yes.
61, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just before the letter that says, "My dear Lizzie."
All right, got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Yes.
Ali, take it away. Tell me something about that quote.
We see that when Bingley and Jane finally marry, Mr. Bennet say it your age of you so complying that nothing will ever be resolved on. So easy that every servant will cheat you, and so generous that you will always exceed your income. This is indicate for the way that Lydia was married, like that the way that Lydia was married will have a solid foundation of respect and mutual admiration.
I want to find that quote. Where did you get the impression that Wickham and Lydia have a solid foundation?
Analysis, just analysis.
No, where's the evidence for that analysis?
From another reference, Doctor, but I don't have write it here.
Okay,
in my
but
papers,
if
my
I can get someone to read me the quote from chapter 61 that tells us a little bit more about Wickham and Lydia's marital state.
He said that Lydia is the opposite of her sister Jane. I think something like that.
Yeah.
She is the opposite of her
Yeah,
sister.
I mean, not the way that Lydia, not the way that she will marry, not the way that Jane married.
She's not the example, the same example.
Yeah.
Lydia and Wickham.
Ali, did you say solid? That Lydia?
Yeah, a solid foundation.
You see, that's problematic, because where is the evidence that shows that Lydia and Wickham's marriage is on solid foundation? Because if I read you this line from chapter 61, the quote that says, "As for Wickham and Lydia," do you find that?
Yeah.
"Their characters suffered no revolution from the marriage of her sisters.
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
He bore with philosophy the conviction that Elizabeth must now become acquainted with whatever of his ingratitude and falsehood had before been unknown to her, and in spite of everything was not wholly without hope that Darcy might yet be prevailed on to make his fortune." Like, what's all that about? Wickham finally realized what? Have you all gotten to that stage? Hello?
No.
Yes.
No, okay, all right, no worries. No, I'm trying to kind of get you to focus on something. When you make any kind of statements, you have to ensure that every statement you make is supported by a concrete evidence from the text. You cannot just make statements as a form of summary of the story, that this is what I think the story is, this is the sense that I get about the characters, and hence this is the issue in the character. You cannot do that. You must always assume that the statements you are making, the concrete evidence comes from the passage, and the passage helps you clearly define the issue that the story is telling you. Do you understand that point?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So every time I hear something that any one of you is making, whether I agree with it or not agree with it, I'm going to ask you the same thing, which is, okay, where in the story did you find this evidence? Where,
Yes.
which passage, which line, which narrator's description, which imagery indicated this is the situation. Okay. So I'm going to just wrap up today's session. We haven't done with everyone's. We're going to continue this next week, inshallah. But based on the two discussion, based on the two presentation, can you now go to the issues section on the notes section on the right hand column here on your screen? Do you all see the notes?
No, doctor.
No, doctor.
Yes.
No.
Have a mobile, yes.
Oh, if you go to more action, if you go to the three dots, not on, sorry. Do you see the conversation button?
No. I will lose you. I will lose everything.
Oh, really? Really?
Where can I find it, doctor?
I'll take my chance.
Good girl. Way to go. Take your chance. Live a little. Okay. If you click the three buttons, do you see the three dots? Okay. You click on that, and the second button from the top says show meeting notes. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, click on that. Do you see the notes that I have been making?
Yep.
No.
Okay.
Yep, doctor.
Now, can you click somewhere at the bottom, double click somewhere at the bottom or the top and add your notes? Can? They will, a plus sign will come up. Double click on that. It will say add section here. Can you see?
Yes.
Oh,
doctor.
okay, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which section, doctor?
See that again?
Which section?
Section that says show notes here. Let me repeat that. Okay, so you will click the three button, and then second from the top it says show meeting notes. Can you see that?
I'll try to see it.
Click three button. The second command from the top. The first one says show device settings. The second command says show meeting notes.
Yes, notes.
Can you see?
I
Click
hope
on
so.
that.
Meeting notes. Yes.
Show meeting notes. Click on that.
Yes, it's Huda chapter from 334.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those
So
are my
Ali-
notes. Those are my
Okay.
notes, right? From
Okay, okay.
Huda's presentation, then from Ali's presentation. Now I want you to double click at the bottom. When you double click at the bottom, a plus sign will appear. Can you see?
Yes.
And what you do is you add your notes there. Can?
Notes.
Notes. Type, based on the two presentation, based on the discussion this hour, what are some issues that came out of the presentation? What are some of the issues that you felt that was presented by the two presenters? So I've got issues there. I said, which character or characters represents the author's voice, and how do we know this, you know? What other issues do you want to add to that? Just add your thoughts. Very and
So whatever I've scribbled down, I could just put it on the notes, right?
Yeah. So this session, we're sharing whatever notes that we have developed thus far. Is anyone trying?
No, I cannot find it, doctor. Sorry.
It's Lizzie and Charlotte, I think. Lizzie
type.
and Charlotte.
Just type it down. Can you type it down?
I can't, no, doctor. Sorry. No, I can't. Sorry.
Shahira, Jen, Ranjini, Muhammad, can you all?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
trying.
typing it now.
Trying to
Yes, please.
edit.
Okay. Okay, I can't see anything right now yet. But you see my notes, right?
Yes, doctor. And you see, doctor, even Miss Bingley, she used to say something about society when she came. You know, Lizzie, when she came walking to see her sister Jen. She said, "Look at her muddy clothes." She just it is the the customs and tradition of the society that women, especially young women,
So
must not do something like that.
okay, I see somebody's typed Darcy's sense of loyalty lies towards himself, tradition, family, or Lizzie. Then Shahira has written Jane and Darcy, and then there's Jennifer. I can't see the rest. So Huda, what did you want to say?
I mean, the young girls, young women, sorry, has to be in good shape, and she was walking under the heavy rain. That's why her clothes were muddy. His clothes were muddy. Her dress, sorry.
So the expectation of society is what?
That she has to be in good shape, and her hair is in good condition, something like that. She doesn't behave. She has, Lizzie has this free spirit, and that is not what they used to be. The women used to be.
So the expectation of society towards ladies is that she keeps up her physical appearance.
Yes.
What else?
Yes.
She cannot be her true self.
No, she cannot walk in muddy roads, something like that.
Walking in the field after rain, where your clothes will be soiled. That indicates what?
Indicate that she is inferior family.
Right.
And she has to take, a courage, someone to drop her. I think so. She must be well behaved, not free.
So inferiority is portrayed when she chooses to walk.
To visit her sister Jane when she was, sick. She got a flu, and she was at Bingley house.
And this inferiority is based on whose perspective?
Of course, Miss Bingley, Mr. Bingley's sister. She always criticized Lizzie from the perspective of of society that time.
Okay, so I have Shahira's notes, Lizzie and Darcy, stiff upper lip. So Lizzie and Darcy. Shahira, are you going to cover this in your presentation? Next week, are you going to cover this in your
I could do it, but I could pick up my own chapter, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So you're not going to cover this next week, yeah?
I could cover it, because it's honestly the whole novel, right?
Yeah.
So I'll pick a chapter and I try to relate my notes to the chapter that I picked.
Okay. So for now, can you just say something about the notes that you have made? Can you all see the notes that Shahira has made?
Yes.
Yes,
If you
doctor.
can't just refresh the button now, on the top right hand corner, there's a circle. Just refresh that and you should be able to kind of get the refresh notes. All right. So Shahira, just say a few words about your
It's
that
just
you have
okay. From the first moment they met at the introduction ball or something, they I guess they've had feelings, or they wanted to get to know each other better, but with the stiff upper lip attitude, and them being a bit snarky at each other. So even as their feelings developed, face they couldn't really face it, and they couldn't really discuss it because of this attitude. And then of course there's also the different class. Their families belong to different class of living. So there's that another issue where um, they're not in the same they're not on the same level, so that just makes it harder for them. And then the they're both prideful people, and they have this prejudice thoughts towards each other, where Mr. Darcy just thought the Bennets as airheads, and Lizzie thought Mr. Darcy as someone who thinks he's superior. What's with Mr. Darcy intervening himself into the relationship, into the courtship of Jane and Bingley.
Right. And you've got something there, romantically interested in someone from different class.
Yeah.
Loud question mark. You want to say something about that?
I guess it's allowed, but it's not really encouraged in the novel, in the 18th century, right?
Right. So who is doing the allowance? Who is giving the allowance? Who is giving the permission? Is it families? Is it people of society? Is it the individual themselves?
I think it's actually the individual themselves. Like how Bingley is interested in Jane, but Darcy wasn't really encouraging about it. And then you have the scene where Bingley went away and Jane became sad, and of course at the end of the novel they were together and happy, despite the different class.
Okay, thank you very much. Jennifer?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about what you wrote down?
Actually, the theme of loyalty haven't really crossed my mind when I read through this whole novel. It's usually just, to me, it's about love, marriage, society, and the economic perspective of each character, stuff like that. So when theme of loyalty is probably how, like Doctor, when you mentioned, is when they are doing something, what are they doing it for? Lizzie's actions are like that because she's doing it for herself, or let's say Lizzie was kind of like disappointed or upset with Charlotte when she chose to marry Mr. Collins. So she did that out of her loyalty or friendship towards Charlotte because she wants her to be in love instead of being realistic. So stuff like that haven't really crossed my mind until the theme of loyalty came in. So it was like, oh, another thing to consider about.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ranjini?
For me, through discussion, when this theme of loyalty popped up, it made me very interested because I feel like I can somehow judge the loyalty of all the characters except for Mr. Darcy, because he's quite mysterious, I think. And till now, I can't exactly say for sure that his loyalty lies with Lizzie or any specific person. So I find it interesting and makes me want like prod further, maybe read again, go through the book again to look for Darcy's loyalty, sense of loyalty.
Okay. Muhammad, did you want to say something?
Yes, I've already wrote
Which
something.
one? Which one?
I sent it. And about the class conflict.
The class conflict. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's at the bottom. Sorry. Do you want to say something? Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. So I remember from the reading the novels more about the class conflict, and this class conflict is mainly stemming from the social, the idea of social identity. It's the identity that the society creates for you. It's not the identity that you create for yourself. And it's mainly based on the collective influence of the surrounding community that is imposing something in a way or another. It's contradicting with yourself. As long as this social identity is created and it is imposing a way of behavior, a way of living, a way of doing things, sometimes it's good for you, sometimes it's charming for you, but sometimes based on the human nature, you need to speak out, to think out the box, to behave in a different way, which is according to this social identity, it's not appropriate. So it's more about the influence of that society at that time, the so structured form of society. And just I want to recall a scene from the novel when just girls started to tease men, the army, that's at the very beginning. They were attracted for them. They didn't know anybody, but they are soldiers. And that structure, that class of soldiers was charming. And this can be more assured with his name. When he started to question his importance with his superiors, that he was saying that is not with that great value as his low class in the army, is not with that great value for his superiors who are generals or something like that. That's all.
Okay, brilliant. So as you continue reading and as we continue discussing this for next week, I want to ask you to think about something. For each of the character that you have chosen as your preference, it could be Bingley and Darcy. For Ali, Shahira says Lizzie, maybe Lizzie and Darcy. Maybe each of you have your particular character that kind of, as you're reading the story, you're focused on that particular character. And it's almost like it's that character that helps guide your reading of the story. So as you're reading each character and their development, if you like, what I want you to think about is this character a product of a particular mindset? Okay, is this character, whoever you're thinking about, Lizzie, Bingley, Darcy, is the character a product of a particular mindset, meaning way of thinking? If so, what is that way of thinking? Do you understand the question? Hello?
Yes, with you.
Okay,
Yes, Dr.
Do you understand? Do you understand the question?
Is the character a product of a
Is a product of a particular mindset?
Mindset.
mindset?
Okay, next week I will introduce you to the idea of mindset, what I mean by that. But I just want you to think about, is this character a product of a particular mindset, a particular way of thinking?
Perspective.
Perspective, a particular perspective. That, for instance, one perspective is women must marry. That's one perspective. Mrs. Bennet's perspective, women must marry because otherwise who's going to look after her?
Yes.
Do you understand? What
Yes.
other perspective or way of thinking do you see in this story? Okay. And is that particular character, for instance, Darcy, is he a product the way he was raised, the way he was groomed, the way he was developed as a person, as a young man, and now, you know, as an adult, is he a product of a particular way of thinking, a particular values or culture or upbringing or tradition? Is he a product of a particular way of thinking? If so, what is it? Do you understand the question?
Could you repeat it again, please, Doctor?
Okay, I'll give you an example.
All right.
Lydia is very young. She's like what? 14, 15, 16 maybe, right? Lydia, the one who
16.
elopes.
Yes.
16?
I think 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
16.
she's the first to marry in the family. She is a product of what kind of a mindset? What's her priority? How was she raised?
It's if you're a woman, you must marry. So
Maybe that's one. What else? What are her values based on?
Good looking man.
Looks, physicality.
To be like others or much better than the others girls.
Two, again?
Just like to be like others girls or better than the others.
To be like others or to be better than others?
Yeah.
So her mindset is, I'm always comparing myself with other people, and if I'm doing better than other people, then I'm fine. If I'm doing like them, I'm fine. I shouldn't be less than them. So that's that. Her actions tells you her mindset, tells you the kind of thinking that goes through her mind, her mindset, the orientation of her mind. Okay. So she is preoccupied by looking constantly and comparing and judging, and you know, that's the kind of like a person that she is. So for every character that you are focusing on, ask yourself, is this character a product? Product means at the end, huh? So you've gone through a kind of a journey, and you are at the end of that journey. You have become the product of that upbringing, of that culture, of that mindset. Okay. If you are a product of a family that says, you know, girls must marry. If you don't marry, what's going to become of you? You're constantly thinking about marriage. You're constantly thinking about, oh gosh, you know, I need to find me somebody. But Lizzie somehow has a different kind of a mindset, right? Compared to Lydia. Lizzie has a slightly different mindset, right? So, but they were raised in the same family. How are they different? How come Lizzie has a different mindset? This guy says, you know, I want you to marry me. And she's angry with him, with Darcy, because Darcy did something to hurt her sister, right? And so she says, no, you know, even if you're the last person on earth, I will not marry you, right? What is she a product of? Why has she chosen that kind of a path? Do you understand the question I'm asking?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want you to try to get into the mind of the character and learn to read between the lines and ask yourself more challenging questions. Is this character a product of a particular upbringing? With Darcy, you can tell. You know, his upbringing, if you look at his relationship with his aunt, his upbringing tells you he is raised to value his social class. He is raised to value his status. He's raised to like it very much and to think highly of his social class, to the extent that he might even look down on the social class of someone else. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Bingley is also raised from the same kind of class, yet Bingley has a different attitude. How is that? So that's what I'm trying to show. Jane Austen is not being stereotypical. She's not saying, oh, if you're wealthy, you tend to be snobbish like Darcy. No, because Bingley is not like that. Got it?
Yes.
Right? And if you come from the middle class, like the Bennets, you'll end up always like Lydia, you know, going gaga over the soldiers. Anybody in uniform will kind of turn your head around. But Lizzie's not like that. She was at the beginning a little bit with Wickham, but not to the extent that like Lydia, right? So my question is, what are each character a product of then? What are you a product of? Are you a product of your parents' guidance when you were growing up? Are you a product of your culture? Are you a product of your societal expectations? What are you a product of? The same with these characters. What are they a product of? So I want you to kind of like look at the circle and look at the macro level. Look at a more macro perspective of putting the character in the middle and asking yourself the question, if I looked at a particular character, yeah, if I looked at Darcy, my question is Darcy a product of his education? Is he a product of his, what else? His wealth? Right? So what indications do you get that these characters are the product of these things that have influenced them, continue to influence them even now as adults? Do you understand the question?
Yes.
Just think about it. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. Just think about it. I'm just slowly getting you to identify the theme of this story based on your perspective. Not based on perspectives that's already out there, but based on your reading and the evidence that you are able to find. All right?
Okay.
Was that okay, the session? Was that all right?
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Am I confusing anyone?
No, all good.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, no worries.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so well, you know, like I said, we're just touching the surface with this story. We're not doing any hardcore literary criticism. We're not bringing in a particular theory or whatever, you know. So it's just generally it's reader respond. It's a practical criticism. You know, we're looking at the form. We're asking certain fundamental questions, but these fundamental questions helps you get to the heart of the story that you see it as a reader, not collectively. We're not doing a collective theme that all of us agree on. It will be everyone's got their own take. So hopefully next week we'll be able to kind of identify it even more so. All right?
All right.
All right.
Okay, so next week we're going to continue with Jennifer, Shahira, Ranjani, and even Muhammad if he wants to participate. Your take on this story. You want to kind of guide the seminar, you know, maybe show us certain excerpts you want us to focus on. Maybe let's do a bit of a close analysis of a particular excerpt. That will be what we'll do next week. Is that all right?
All right.
All right.
Yes.
I'm still here.
All right, awesome. Can we just go through the list very quickly? Now, who's this? Shahira, any comments, thoughts that you want to say before we conclude?
No, I don't think so.
Nothing? Okay. Ranjani?
Doctor, just want to ask you a question, but not exactly related to this.
No
The
worries.
list that you gave, right, the book list,
Yeah.
is it following the order of the book that we'll be doing? The first one is Pride and Prejudice. The second one is The Yellow Bird. Is it correct? So after this, we'll
I
be
will
focusing
check.
on The Yellow Bird.
I will check and send you a screenshot on the WhatsApp. But the books that we are covering, if you can just read all of them this period, this holiday period, quote unquote holiday period, if you can just read them and know the story, do exactly what we're doing with Pride and Prejudice. When semester resumes, and we will follow the schedule. But I will take a screenshot of the course schedule, not the list of books, the course schedule, and then you will see the list more clearly.
Okay, Dr. Sure. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that after class, after this session.
All right, Dr. Sure.
All right. Okay. Who's next? Huda, anything to say? Any comments, questions?
No, thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Ali, anything you want to say?
Okay. Thank you, Doctor, for your effort with us.
No worries. Who else? Jennifer, anything you want to say before we end?
No, all good.
Really? Okay. Muhammad, anything you want to say before we end?
Thank you. Thank you. Nothing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for making time to do this. I hope it's not confusing you. I hope it's giving you some ideas to think about further as you read the story. There's a lot more going on in the story than someone who is proud and someone who is prejudicial and the conflict between them. There's a lot more going there. And so what I wanted to do was to kind of help you see the layers. It's like an onion peel, you're peeling and peeling and peeling. So as you peel out more layers, as you read closer and you ask more critical questions, you find that your reading of the story will be uniquely yours based on your perspective. So that's what I want you to kind of like reach towards. With at least with this book. And then if you can do the same with every book that we are going to do for our comparative literature class, you will find that you have no issues with identifying an original reading of a particular text. Everybody seems to know and love. Okay? And so it's easier to do a research when you are able to identify something that is unique and original, that is the gap in the reading, in the previous reading of that novel, for instance. Okay, so thank you so much. Inshallah, I will see you next Friday again, I'm assuming. And if there's any questions, we can communicate via WhatsApp. All right?
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you so much. Take care. Take
Thank
care,
you.
everyone. Be safe. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you,
Thank
doctor.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.